Hello and welcome to the More Than Roommates podcast. I'm Dan, here with my roommate Graham, and someone else here today.
Special guest.
Our very first guest.
Special roommate.
Yeah, special edition. So this is McKenzi. How are you doing?
I'm here.
Yes.
In many ways, but not just here, but
mentally.
Yes,
perfect.
just each day, you know.
We want to thank you for coming on.
Oh
for those of you who do not know, McKenzi and I, we go way back.
Yeah.
Like
what, a couple years?
Yeah, I think 5 now.
I think since
6.
our junior year of college.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't know each other until junior year.
Mm-hmm.
I had it
Something
built
like
up in my
that.
head that you knew each other for I don't know.
It was like
No.
ethics
time.
class, and McKenzi was the group leader, and
Yeah.
she
To
made
be
sure.
honest, I don't remember much of college, not because I was going crazy, but it's just been so long.
It's crazy.
So what I will say, the pandemic really messed up my memory. There's just not a lot of things that I remember. So I'm gonna guess that it was junior year.
It was
Okay.
like the second half of
Yes.
college.
Because we did have ethics class, but then we also had what was supposed to be a celebrity class, but
Yes.
we were talking about stuff from the 1920s.
Yeah, it was
and
like
how
pop
women
culture.
women couldn't say that they were actually pregnant on air because you couldn't say the word pregnant, and it was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then remember that whole week we did with Oprah?
Yes,
Yes.
and about the giveaways and stuff.
Yes.
It was supposed to be an interesting class.
It really was, but
You-
it was not interesting.
You were supposed to
Did everyone
learn.
get a humpback whale?
We were.
You don't remember that?
No.
I only remember that you get a car. You get a
Yeah.
car.
Oh yeah, no, it was what was it? Oprah was. Everybody thought she was running for president. It was
Oh
my
yeah, it was like
gosh.
one tweet that got taken out of context. But the class was supposed to show what was popular throughout the decades, but the guy catered the class towards what he was interested in,
Mhm.
and he was very interested in St. Louis and baseball. So, and the professor was from Ferguson, which is where I'm from, and he went to the same elementary school as me.
Oh,
So I was
Whoa.
like A+ in the bag.
Just
That is
said it.
secured.
Every header, he was like, "Hey, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm from
Dan
just so
from
you know."
Yeah.
Ferguson.
He's like, "So is your last name from Ferguson, or
Yeah, right.
What's going on?" You're like, "Oh, no, I
Exactly.
just wanted to let you know."
Right.
What a throwback!
I know.
remember where we sat too.
Yeah.
I
In the
always sat in the aisle.
yep, and I sat
always.
next to you.
Yep.
So we both studied journalism, and then we
Mhm.
both worked on school news together, and then we also worked at a television news station.
Yeah.
So McKenzi is a TV anchor woman, killing the game. And so we
No,
wanted
just
to, no, she's really
Okay.
good.
No, I'm just kidding.
And you always had an interest in the celebrity news and
Yes.
fashion and all of that, right?
I wouldn't say fashion. I'm the least fashionable
No,
person,
she's
but
not.
I'm very
cute.
into.
I mean,
No, I'm
yeah.
getting my Gen Z on right now.
Yeah, I love the
know?
jeans.
I was like, nobody's gonna come for me for skinny jeans, but yes, I did always have a knack for celebrity news and a lot of pop culture. So I'm just full of stupid pop culture references and facts that literally nobody asks. I'll just randomly be in the hall and I'm like, yeah. Do you know where that's from?
Oh, it's from the beaver.
EVA.
The beaver.
Oh,
I saw
yeah.
that TikTok.
I'm just always randomly giving out pop culture facts. But then when I actually got into news and kind of figuring out what the industry was like, I kind of changed and I'm like, oh, well, maybe not celebrity news. Yes, you get to be around celebrities and everything, but being a part of the local community was a little bit more fun.
I agree. And that was where it was funny that you're so into pop culture and I could not get a pop culture reference if you so we struggle with that. And Graham's big into pop culture too, so
Every
I'm
time.
always
We balance each other out a little
Every
bit.
time I was like, Dan, where do you live?
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
Where are you half the
Right,
time?
I know. I'm just out
I'm
to
just
lunch.
okay, so anybody here? I think that's also what it was. Nobody actually not a lot of people knew pop culture references in the newsroom. So I was like, okay, so I'm just talking to myself. They would know here and there, you know, depending on who it was. But I'm like, okay, so I'll just go into local news and start talking and whatnot. But
Yeah. So
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about how you got into news and what it's like nowadays?
yes, so I got into news kind of accidentally, I guess. Sorry if my grammar is not that great.
Oh, it's very chill. It's less formal.
Okay, so I had originally wanted to be a business major after I wanted to be a psychology major for forever. I would did 5 majors, and everybody's like, how did you do it in 4 years? Well, I cheated the system and just took my core classes and figured out that I didn't actually like what I wanted to major in. And so one day I just kind of took my business classes. That was like the worst semester ever. It was my fall semester of sophomore year. And I think in college, like especially with sophomore year, like you're getting into, becoming an adult. You turn 20 that year, and I just did not know how to balance partying and, studying at the same time. And so business classes were just not a thing for me. Like I just was not doing well. I think that was the first time I ever got, I want to say, a D.
Wow.
And
McKenzi.
I was so heartbroken.
Oh my gosh.
My mom was like, I mean, it's okay, but like, don't do it again, And so from there, I was like, I don't think business is right for me. And I had just been at home during winter break, just looking up some stuff like other majors, because I wanted to be in marketing, but I didn't want to push out the product. I wanted to create the concept for what the commercials were going to look like. There was there's an Apple commercial that was kind of promoting stickers. Remember when stickers on laptops were such a big thing, and they were centered around the Apple. And there is a commercial about the stickers that just like I will never forget. It was just the best commercial ever, and I was like, I want to do that. And so then I talked to one of the journalism oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the people that you
counselors?
Go to. Yes.
Guidance counselor. Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine.
One of them.
The GC.
Yeah, one of those people. And Dan.
Yes,
actually.
Dan, I had him.
And so I was explaining to him, exactly what I wanted to do. And he was like, well, why don't you try strategic communications? And I was like, okay, what is that? And he told me about it's in the School of Journalism. And he was like, how about you also, do a little extracurricular activity? Here's this thing called KUJH. So I went to do like this little project, or not, I guess not a project, but like a extracurricular activity where we got to kind of get an foot in the door of being on air. And my first day I walked in and I'm like, oh yeah, I just wanted to try this out, blah, blah, blah. I really like to talk people's heads off, and I just like talking, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, cool. So you're going to be the host of our first show. And I was like, oh, this is probably one of those examples where I should have just shut up.
Yeah, right.
You learned, like, don't
bit
talk
off too much more than
way too much. And so then that first show, they were like, okay, so it's going to be like a, Good Morning America style. The first section is going to be hosting. So you're just going to sit there and just talk, talk about whatever. And it just felt so natural to me. Like I was not nervous whatsoever.
Good.
Wasn't nervous to be on camera. I just thought it was very, natural. Honestly, I forgot that the camera was there. And I was like, okay, I kind of actually like this. So I took some broadcast classes, took some journalism classes, and then just kind of fell into it and learned how to become a reporter. Horrible at broadcast news. I don't know how I got a job.
It's what is so challenging about that field is there is no gradual progression. I mean, there is to some extent, like they don't let you go live right away, so you don't just like freeze up and you work your way up. But for the most part, you're just on TV and you go from, I just did this high school project. And then a week later, I'm like, okay, now I'm like reporting on government affairs, like on TV. And it's a hard adjustment.
It's a lot. And you get the people who are like, oh, since I was, 5 years old, I grew up watching this person and I just always wanted to be on camera. I would act like I was a news reporter, blah, blah, blah. And that was never me. My parents, my mom especially, would always watch the news. So that was just something that was like on the, the TV all the time. I've seen news all the time, but I never imagined myself actually being behind the camera. And then just taking it in college, I was like, okay, this actually is kind of cool. And I'm on track to still graduate in 4 years. Why don't I try this? And then being able to do the capstone between school and the station that I'm at now, that was amazing because in the first year, that first summer when I did my capstone, because I did the summer course, you were actually the first class to do the capstone.
Correct.
And so that's how I actually found out about.
Yeah, we kind of bonded over that
because I was like, oh my gosh, you're so cool. You work at a, oh my gosh, how do you do that? And you're like, well, actually, it's a capstone.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, so I need to enroll in this class. But
Mhm.
everybody kind of had to take that class in general for broadcast because we didn't have a huge broadcast group. A lot of people were more newspaper with our school. And so that was a great opportunity. I will never say that opportunity did not teach me.
It gave you the
so
chance
much.
to fail without the repercussions, you know?
And a lot of times it's, you know, you turn on the TV, if you watch the news, you hear how they talk. And a lot of people don't understand that we actually have to learn how to talk in a conversational way, because when you're reading something, it's so much easier to like read and understand information and see like those thicker paragraphs, you know, when you can use those bigger words or anything. But actually having to learn how to kind of tailor your writing so that a 5-year-old, a 50-year-old, and a 95-year-old in the room can understand the information all together without losing their interest. You just don't learn it overnight, and you feel so uncomfortable like talking on air as a professional using like 5th grade level writing.
That was something that I struggled with at the beginning, because you wanted to balance of being like, I want to portray that I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
And I remember one of my first things, I was like, I found it was like a dispute of what a law was, and I found the law written out. And so I'm like, in subsection A of classified D, and then my news director was like, no one cares.
No one knows
but
that.
I'm like, but I'm trying to show that I did. And he's like, no, you just say the law says, and you just have to be trusted.
And and you think, so a lot of times we think when we're in news, like we have to know everything, and we don't know everything. We really don't. And a lot of times, especially in your first market, you are learning so much about the world, because think about it, most of us are out of college. We're still in our early 20s by the time that we're getting into this industry, where it's like
babies,
a lot of stuff that is put on you. And so there's just sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid that I don't know what SB means in this law. But you know, this person who's been in this industry for X amount of years, they know. And it's like, but they've been in this industry for X amount of years. That's why they know. And so you learn so much as you're going through it. I learned so many things. Police talk.
Yeah.
Like when I see a script that now says so-and-so was apprehended, I'm like, you better say they were arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, or they were taken into custody. Don't you dare say apprehended to me.
They fled on foot. They ran away. They ran away.
If they're not able to run, they walked.
Yeah.
They walked away.
They got away. They didn't get them.
And it's one of those things where when you're a writer, you feel like you have to be so creative with your writing, but we had to learn how to be creative without losing attention. And if you lose attention by using these giant words, it's just like, especially if I don't know the word, I'm going to look away and I'm going to go Google, okay, what does this word mean that they just said? So therefore you just lost me. I'm not paying attention to the story anymore because you tried to say humongous when you could just say huge, you know, something like that. Like most people know what humongous is or anything, but just those huge words that people don't really know. Yeah. And you just have to pay attention to your area too.
Know your demographic.
Yes. So all that to say, that's how I got into news.
Do you have a question for her?
Oh yeah. So did you end up learning like all the like police signals? Like would you sit and watch the scanners and stuff too?
So we actually there was a time where I kind of call it being demoted a little bit to when I had to do weekend web. Do you remember?
No, yeah. We all had to do that too. Yes,
but it was.
But you were good at it, so then they made you. you played you played yourself.
And I remember our coworker, who was she was the weekend anchor and producer for all of the shows at the time. Yeah. And she was just like, I need help on the weekend. And so each of us took like rounds of when we were supposed to go, but I was the only one that did it for like months on end.
For sure.
And I was like, why do I keep being demoted to doing this? And she's like, because you're like able to do it,
And
like
really
you're good
good
at
at
it.
it.
And so I was like, okay, well then if I'm gonna be stuck sitting, on web listening to scanners, I'm gonna learn how to produce too. So that's like a little bit of a tangent, but yes,
Cool.
we had this thing, a printed out paper behind us where it was all of the scanner codes and like what's a signal, signal this, and like if I say code black signal 3 whatever, it's like, okay, so somebody is dead and it happens to be a I think signal 3 is a white woman, maybe.
Gosh, I can't
No.
remember. It's been too long for
No,
me.
I want to say no, I think it's black something, but they will tell you like the demographics and signals and what is going on at 10:23 is 10:14. If you hear that, they're just saying, okay, got you, stuff like that. So every time I would hear it, I would just real quick let me just look back.
There were a couple things too that I learned about the scanner too, is you really got to learn the beeps, and if they did like a loud beep before they started talking, you knew something was going down. So like sometimes they'll just cut in and be like da 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 da, and you're like, okay. But then if you're beep, it's like get your attention.
Yeah, there is a tone that's like,
it
plays a little bit longer, and usually if I'm listening to it for a couple seconds, I'm like, okay, that's gonna be a medical call.
Yeah,
it's usually a medical call.
And that was the other thing, I didn't realize a fire truck goes to every medical call, like even if it's not a fire, because they're all CPR trained and they're first responders.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that.
Yeah. So yes, you do learn a lot of the signals. I don't know all of them. Like that's why when I was like, oh, signal, and actually no, signal is not a description. I think it's code actually. So code something and whatever. I'm probably saying all of this wrong because there's a lot.
Used to looking at
yes,
it.
There's a lot. And so when you're really listening, then you can be like, oh, okay, wait. Because a lot of times you have to actually make sure you're listening so you can get the address. Yeah. That's what you're really listening for. And they say it so fast half the time. Yeah. And that's the...
And then there's a person on the police department that is the go-to to call at a time. So you call this hotline and their job is to respond to the media and say, hey, I just heard this. Is it okay? Usually you just go no matter what. You don't ask, is it okay? But you're like, hey, can you, we heard this was going on. Is this something actually happening and stuff? But so can I bring up the softball or the baseball story when you first started? Whoa, I got to, and we cut it out.
Oh, the tournament.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, please
so
do.
This was it kind of sums.
I'm like, what are you talking about? I've been there for 5 years, by the way.
I know.
So everything just roams together.
But it was something, so I started like a semester before, or a few months before you started. So I had gotten a little bit into my groove, and then you were coming on board. And on the weekend crew, it is a bare bones crew. There's only like 3 or 4 people that work on the weekend. Yeah. And McKenzi was doing one
back then.
Yeah. Oh, is it even less now?
It's more.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So McKenzi was doing a story about softball, baseball.
It was a softball tournament to raise money for a muscular dystrophy camp out here, and it's in one of our really small towns that is just right outside of where we are, and they have this tournament every year. And this was my first time going to it. But yes, it was a softball tournament for a fundraiser.
Yes. And in news, as you can imagine, there are some very tight deadlines. Like I've described it, this pressure is like, imagine you have a final presentation every day. Like for your final semester project is every day. So that's like the stress that you're like, I just want to get this done. I have to do it. So when you start, you're a little slower and stuff. And you were getting close to the deadline of when the show was airing. And you guys would not believe how late sometimes you can fit stuff in. Like sometimes the show could be started and you could be like, okay, I'm not going to air until 6:04. I'm still fixing stuff. And so you just hope it'll send and stuff. And we were getting close to that deadline and the pressure was starting to kick in for McKenzi.
Like 4:30 and the show was at 5 or something. It was that close. And I was very slow. I was so slow when it came to like writing, filming, editing, and all of that.
Because you were new, and
I'll knock it out knock it out right now.
Right now it's
Give me an hour.
And so we were getting close, and McKenzi had done all the interviews, you had recorded your voice, so you were literally just like putting the piece. It's like a puzzle that you're putting together.
Yeah.
And McKenzi was just like, she was getting scolded by someone higher up, and she was like, I could just tell it was starting to like, she was panicking.
Literally froze. She goes, "Are you gonna get this in time?" And it was like, I imagined myself like, "Yeah, I'm doing." Sorry, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing it." And then I just froze.
And I had been there like literally 2 weeks before. Everyone has like that moment.
And she goes, "Dan, can you come in here and help her?" And I was just like, I'm about to cry. I was like, the tears were just building up in my eyes, and then you could just feel them coming down.
You just knew it. So McKenzi held it, and then as soon as the person walked away, I was like, "It's okay." And I just kind of pushed her aside, and I'm like,
I was like,
it's just like, and then you had to go on air and be like, "Okay."
yes,
and this
I got pushed to the B block because
Yeah.
it didn't work. And in the moment, I was like, "Oh my gosh, she hates me so much." Like, I guess I didn't really understand in that moment, like, the producing side of it, because it's only her.
And she's under just as much pressure to make sure
Right.
that, so I vote, yeah, you gotta like, you can't
it's
get
only-
upset about the tone. It's
Yeah.
the message.
Oh my gosh, yes, that is something. Newsrooms are not for the lighthearted.
No.
At all. It is such a high strung environment at times. Like, we know how to like have fun, relax and everything, but when it's time to go, like, if somebody yells at you, especially I always say, when if we get yelled at studio versus control room, it doesn't matter once you come back to the newsroom. It's like in that moment, unless something is like crazy going on, but most of the time it's just you're in the moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like you all have the same goal, and it's nothing personal, but it's like, this show is going on whether we're ready or not. So like, get to it, you know? So
I got pushed down to the B block, had to go in studio and do a hit. And I'm like, yes, so let me just blah, 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 blah. This is a story. And then it got done and I was like,
yeah, we all had our cries.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God.
Mine, gosh, yeah, I just feel like I was in such a different headspace. But it's a lot of pressure, and you want to perform well. And I just remember it was very early on too, and I was in a city with no cell service, and I had finished my story. I had time to spare, which is like never happens, and I couldn't send up my edited story. I was standing on their cell towers with the
cell.
Yes, that is like your biggest enemy. That and bathrooms. No bathrooms out in the field.
Oh my gosh. When we had to work through the pandemic and we still were reporting, that was the worst ever. Like, yes, the pandemic in general, coronavirus and everything, was so bad, and luckily people got to work from home. We didn't still get to work from home, and that was the hardest time, was trying to find somewhere to edit if we were out in the field, and to pee.
Yeah.
Where can I go pee?
Yeah.
You know how many houses we had to like, hey, can I just...
Yeah, I used many people's bathrooms.
Yes, we had to use...
When you have to go, like,
Yeah.
If
we were like in an area where I knew one of my coworkers' families lived, hey, can I like use your grandma's bathroom really quick?
Because like you'll go to a city that's 2 hours away, and you have a whole 8-hour day that you're out there.
Yeah.
That happens.
That was one of the hardest part. And like reporting in the pandemic, I always tell people the pandemic hit us in news much quicker than it did the public, because while like we were
tracking it,
we were with news stories every single day when it came to the pandemic, and that was hard. It was so hard on us, and I don't know how to explain it, like why it was such a struggle, but tensions were so high around that time.
Just traumatic, and scary, like the unknown.
Pretty scary. We did not know so much stuff, because our information was coming from people who are in the public health industry. They didn't know.
Yeah, and people were coming to us for the answers. And I think you could see, and so I met Graham like as the pandemic was starting. We went on 2 dates, and then quarantine happened, and we chose to quarantine together because I was seeing people
had to do it to him.
But also, I was seeing people face to face and every day, and I was freaked out. And he saw on many occasions, there were a lot of protests back then too. And I would just come home and I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to get sick. And so I would like sleep on the couch, or like it was just so stressful, just constant, like I have to. And then in your free time, we weren't supposed to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, okay, at work, I'm around all these people, and then now I'm supposed to sit at home and just, and I get that it especially meant we needed to stay at home because we had been in contact, but it was just nonstop of like, what is right, what is wrong, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And then doing a story too, like, you know, nursing homes were a big story, and it's like, oh God, I don't even want to come to this nursing home because yesterday I did a story about a protest and I was around 100 people, and it's like, gosh, just every day it was just.
And the high pressure to just keep pushing those out
Right.
has to be insane.
I can't believe you remember that softball story.
I love it.
Like,
we
how
talk
even got
about
on
it.
This, but like, oh
Yes.
my gosh, I still talk about that story.
It's just
with who was the weekend anchor producer at that time, and I was like, I swear you hated me.
It sums up kind of the stress that you're under. But the other story that was just McKenzi and I, so normally we're out by ourselves.
Yeah.
But on rare occasions, if the story called for it, you would pair up just for safety. And so the Chiefs were one game away from going to the Super Bowl 2019.
This was before they
started winning.
No, I think this might have been, so in 2020 they won. So the season before they were that close to getting to the playoffs.
Tom Brady knocked us out.
The Patriots.
So it was that one.
Yes.
It was that one game.
Keep in mind, I am not a sports guy whatsoever.
You're not a sporter.
Not a sporting at all.
Sports ball.
So they, of course, sent McKenzi and I was supposed to be the on-air reporter, and then McKenzi was my muscle to make sure if we got mobbed. And then we're like, oh, McKenzi, who's McKenzi going to stop?
I was Dan's bodyguard. Okay?
Yeah.
Now let's look at this. Dan is like 7 foot tall.
Right.
Right. I am 5'2" on a good day. Like 5'2", 3, 4, you know, whatever. And I was the bodyguard, but also I signed up to be your bodyguard.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I may be little, but
you got to do that ankle sweep, girl.
Okay?
You're down there.
Yeah. Anytime, because I like to say I'm very aware of my surroundings. So a lot of times when we are on air and we're reporting, that light that we have to put up is so bright, so you really cannot see a lot around you. So I was the one, and I was like, okay, so I'll set you up, you know, he's super tall, and I'm like, I was like, at some point you have to like do your own camera work because I can't reach up that high. I'm sorry. And then in the meantime, like, people would come around, and I was just like, what are you doing? Get back, sir.
Well, and
I protected you in a lot of situations.
You did. So
thank you.
Yeah. I owe her my life. But the Chiefs lost.
I almost did let you get shot once.
That was the other one that I want to bring up. But so the Chiefs,
not really.
I don't know. But the Chiefs lost, and the people were mad.
Oh yeah.
They kept coming up to us and they're like, "Are you with the Patriots?" Like, they were gonna beat us up just because we were the news. With like, I was like, "No, why would the Patriots be here?"
They're sitting here talking to Dan, and Dan's like, "Oh no!" And here I come around the corner. I'm like, "No, we're not.
Yeah,
we're good. We're Chiefs fans. Bye." And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And I'm like,
"Yeah." I was trying to be like, "Oh, I didn't even know what was going on." I'm like, "What? Are we the?" I'm like, "McKenzi, are we the Patriots fans?" And she's like, "No, we're not.
We're not. We watched the game."
Daniel, I had to break out his government name.
Yeah. I was like, "Move, Dan."
Yeah.
So
I'll get him.
The other time that McKenzi was my muscle was a horrible incident, but it was a road rage over a McDonald's. Something happened in a McDonald's parking lot, and someone was chased down.
It's always fast food.
They'll get you.
Makes them crazy.
And someone was killed after all of this, and we had to do a story that night. But they had.
Did they get killed?
They either had died or were dying.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It was bad. I think they did.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but again, so many stories run together.
Yeah.
So I could not remember if this one was deadly or not.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure. And they hadn't caught the guy, and they didn't know who did it. So we had to go live at the scene of the crime.
At this person's apartment.
Were you together this time again?
Yeah. So McKenzi was my muscle because she's gonna stop bullets.
Yeah.
And so we were very on edge. Like, a lot of times when you're at a crime scene, it's safer to be there because one, person's probably not going to be there, and two, there's a lot of police. For some reason, they had cleaned the scene up early, and there was just caution tape. There wasn't any police. So we're setting up the
Spooky.
camera, and McKenzi and I were very, like, sometimes we ramp each other up. We're just like, woo, and we were setting it up, and a car drives by pretty slowly. They drive past us, and then they slam on the brakes and then throw it in reverse. And McKenzi just dives into the car without a sec. I was like, McKenzi, scooch over. I'm trying to get him.
He's over there, setting up the camera and everything. I see the car, and I was like,
just booked it.
I'm out.
I was like, McKenzi, you're supposed to protect me.
He's like, hello. And I said, no, you're good. You'll get him. You're good.
Yeah, they didn't even end up stopping and talking to us.
I think they just wanted to see
what was
our
going
car,
on.
because I think we were in like a KS, and we were in a
They
car.
could have gone around the block like a normal person.
I think we were in a news car for sure.
For sure. And so, yeah, it was just like some of the stuff. It was crazy.
They were
but quite the
blissfully
adventure.
unaware, it sounded like.
And there was something I wanted to ask, but did you have anything that surprised you once you got in the industry? Just like what one thing that, I don't know, it was just like, something that maybe you had to work more towards that you didn't expect to be a challenge. Like, as we talked about the voice thing, I've even talked about it on the podcast. That was like my biggest struggle, was having such a high voice and working on that. So was there something?
I don't think that there was anything that ever surprised me that was going to come with the job, because my professors were very transparent about the fact that the pay is not good. It's not, you're not going to make a ton of money once you get into the industry. So I wasn't surprised by that. I wasn't surprised by the workload, because there was a class where we were kind of required to do the, like the package and the VOSOT, or like, multiple VOSOTs or something, and kind of just like get into the groove. So I think a lot of times, it was very helpful that our professors were actually not so far removed from being in a newsroom. Oh man, I think the only thing that surprised me, and actually no, even the makeup thing, that did not surprise me.
Wait, you mean, what about it? That how we get our endless team of...
So a lot of people think that we have makeup artists, and it's like, if you ever see somebody on air who has good makeup, you better compliment them, because they were the ones who did it themselves. Okay, when people compliment me on my makeup, I'm like, oh, thank you. I got this off YouTube, but we don't have makeup teams. And actually, I learned that. I remember when I was in elementary school, we went on a trip to a news station back home, and we walked around the studio, and the lady, I can't even remember who the anchor was, but she's like, yeah, so this is where we come and we do our makeup. And somebody was like, oh, you don't have anybody that does it for you? And they're like, nope, we do it all. This was like in the early 2000s. Like, yeah. So 20 years later, I'm in the industry, and it's, you still don't get it.
No.
There are some places that do it, but it's usually going to be the bigger markets.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think maybe the only thing that, I think I'm just so like into it.
Yeah.
Just nothing surprises me anymore. It's like, it'll surprise you for a second, but no, I think some like behind the scenes challenges that I've had maybe are like the surprise factor. So mental health is one of them that is like that. I think that's where it kind of surprised me that I had dealt with anxiety. I think I started having panic attacks when I was in college. I remember there was one day my junior year, I'm driving to work because I worked in Kansas City at the time. And so I'm driving to work, and I'm in the car, and I'm having a panic attack because I'm thinking of going to work, and I'm also thinking of homework that I have to do and the studying. And I'm in the car, and I can just like, I'm sobbing. I had no idea what to do. Like I had no idea what was going on. And I was talking to my mom, and she's like, okay, calm down. First of all, don't ever tell somebody who has anxiety to calm down.
I'm magically cured.
Yeah. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
But I don't think, and it's not to like shame her or anything. No. She just didn't know.
You want to help. Yeah.
She had no idea in the moment that I was actually having anxiety and I was having a panic attack. And so as I was talking to her, I was saying like, I can't breathe. It's very hard on me right now. I don't know what to do. And then like she realized, oh, okay, you're actually like having a panic attack. So I had anxiety here and there when I was in college. But then once I got to working in news, I think that's when it really like shot up. I will never forget there was one summer where I was just so stressed financially, and I actually had to go back home and visit my parents, and I just was so many things were going through my head, like, how am I going to pay for gas? I got to drive back, and the drive from where, back home is not too long, but this is the first time, like, I'm paying for my own gas and stuff like that. And so I had so much anxiety, and my heart had it felt like it had an extra heartbeat. And so for the longest time I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is going on? Obviously, like, that's not a heart attack. I was worried that, like, my heart was going to explode or something.
Wow.
It lasted for like about a week.
Wow.
And I had no idea what was triggering it. So I went to urgent care. They did an EKG, like, the little one on me. And she's like, your heartbeat is pretty regular. Like, all of your tests and everything show like you're fine. And the doctor's like, I think you might just be a little dehydrated because it's hot. This is the summer. And I was like, ma'am, I'm not dehydrated. I know it. Like, there's something actually wrong here. So fast forward to winter, and I'm telling the story to my actual primary care doctor, and she's like, no, that sounds like you were having an anxiety attack, but you were like functioning, like you were having a panic attack in the moment. And then once I had actually like gone to the doctor, sat down, because then at that point, the money part was already over. Now I'm panicking about the fact that my heart is, going crazy. But I would find that it was something more, because when I was out and doing stories and I was interviewing people, I was distracted. So there was nothing going on where like I had to overthink.
You're so busy.
Yeah. So then I'd get in the car and I'd start having those, timelines and deadlines that are coming up, and it would start going again. And I was like, I think
correlation.
This might be because I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm having some kind of panic attack right now. And that was the first time that I had ever been medicated for my anxiety. And not to say, I everybody's experience is different. This is just me speaking about my own experience, but I do feel like my anxiety just got a little bit worse while working in a news industry, just because you have so much. We go through so many things.
It's so stressful.
There's a lot of things that we see that the normal people don't see, like affidavits, for example.
Reading
when
those.
There's a crime and we have to go through and read affidavits, like a description of what was happening. Who's actually going to see those affidavits? Unless you actually are just very curious and you're going to go to the courts and actually go through the whole process to get something. The people that are going to see that are going to be the police officers, the investigators, whoever's in law, and then we see it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, okay. But we have to kind of read those things because we have to understand what's going on. So we see a lot of things and we go through a lot of things that the normal people don't go through.
And
things that are not pretty, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Too.
And when we were joking about this story though, but we thought someone was about to pull a gun on us, and that was a Tuesday, and then you go back Wednesday and you just are like, oh,
expected to still turn a story around,
and
right?
there's like a culture too where it's just like you don't want to like ask for help because then it's like, okay, you can't handle it, you're not cut out for this. But I think it like with police and stuff, they don't have the option of seeing a therapist after seeing something traumatic. But I think I will speak from my perspective that I think that there should be some, someone on standby to help you talk through that, because it's just hard. You see so much and it's day to day, and it's not like you have like, okay, you saw this one time and then it could be 3 days in a row you deal with something really bad and then you just have to keep going. So
yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot mentally. And again, there are also like factors that happen outside in your personal life. And because these are the people, we come into our first market and we are outsiders to this city. A lot of us are. Like, some people are actually from the town that they work in. But for me, for you, we were not around family. So our family happened to be the people that we were working with, because we all came from the same, like, we had just been like maybe a year or a couple months removed from college. We had all started around the same time. We're all the same age. And so you would have the people that are like, you guys gotta stop hanging out with one another. You can't, like, these are your work friends, not your actual friends. But it's like,
we don't know
who else are we gonna like, we don't know anybody else.
And you spend the holidays together and all of that, so you become I mean, it's hard. And that was part of it too. It's just your whole life becomes it. Like, you hang out with your friends, they work in news, you talk about news, you go to work, all that. So it's a hard cycle.
but there's some positives.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
It's so exciting.
It's such. I had said one day, I was like, I do not know what people do. Like, you not working in news, like, what do you do every day at work?
Go to war with spreadsheets, man. The mental struggle.
And the fact that something is new every single day for us, it gets that dopamine just going.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, like me, I've listened to every single episode of Dateline,
Yeah.
and it makes me like excited to hear about a new episode every day. But because we are constantly on the go, something's new all the time, you're really like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And
Yeah.
we get to go. It's a fun job.
It
I
is.
don't recommend people look at, like, my experience, because we're talking specifically about like things that surprised us, or
Mhm.
something. You learn so much, and being 5 years into it, like, I understood that there are some bads, but there's also some good.
Yeah, because you
And
do
that's
so much for
every single job.
For
That's
sure.
every job. It's fun. It is a lot of fun. And if you're not in, like me, I wasn't into the crime beat for a while.
Yeah.
And a lot of people knew that at my station, so I got to do a lot of feature stories.
Yeah.
And those are, oh my gosh, there are a lot of people who knock feature stories. They're like, it's not real news, like, oh, those are fluff pieces. But
You gotta have some
That's where
positivity.
you have to. And
Come
I
on,
think
yeah.
my favorite part of being the featured news girl is you get those people that are like, the news is just so sad, it's so depressing, I don't watch the news because of this, and I can just listen to
Yeah.
this, like, look at this, and they're like, oh, I didn't see a story like that. So it's like, okay, it's you.
Yeah, you're not
It's
looking
you.
for it.
Our product comes from what our viewers are liking. If our viewers are reacting to the crime that's happening around their area, or learning where their tax dollars are going or something, we're going to keep pushing out that. News is an entertainment industry. It really is. It's not in the same way of like, I'm going to put out this story just to entertain you. No, I'm putting out this information because you need to know it. But at the same time, that's something that you're interested in. So I'm going to keep telling you about this.
Correct. And that's
Yeah.
like, we do those positive stories, but the people on social media interact with the intense ones. So again, it's like we're putting that content out. It just, you won't see it unless you
Yeah.
interact with it. So.
And it really comes down, I mean, if you're, again, algorithms,
Mhm.
We're all feeding it.
we're all, if you are a part of the scanner pages and you're looking for those stories,
That's what
those
you're going to
talkers,
see.
that's what you're going to see. That's what your feed is going to be. So those other, like, fluffy news stories, they're going to be pushed down because you're not interacting with it. So it really just comes down, when people say that, I'm like, so then what are you looking at?
Yeah, for
what is it that you're looking at specifically that
Yeah.
is giving you all that depressing news?
Yeah.
So I see both sides, but honestly, it really is a fun job. And whether or not you stay, if people stay in news, if they leave news or something, there are so many skills that we learn from being a smaller market, from working those those shifts where it's only like 5 of us.
Yeah.
On it. You learn so much that you can take with you in your personal life and into your new industry. Time management. Can you believe how
Yeah.
fast we learn how to work?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And working on deadlines, like, I'm horrible at procrastinating because I want to work on a deadline. I want to
Yeah,
be,
because it keeps you that
I would, if I have X amount of time to work on something, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go by frame, and just each day I'm gonna look at a new frame purposely, and then all of a sudden the day turns around, it's like, okay, did you get that package done? And it's like, nope, and then I'm just over there because my creativity is going. I'm used to that environment, so I'm like going crazy.
Yeah.
It's bad. That's why I said, give me an hour now.
Yeah.
I'll knock it out.
For sure.
I just think, like, there are a lot of good moments.
Yeah.
And just in general, just in life, we always focus on, sometimes the bad always outweighs the good. But if it's ever an industry that you want to try out, do it. Just do it.
Yeah, look into it.
Look into it and just be the judge of your own environment that you're going into. That's always just my advice. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do
Well,
the research.
I appreciate you coming down and being our
course.
first guest and kind of
Oh my
sharing about your
gosh.
life.
It was so much fun. I mean, it's
What was your headspace going in? Because this is different. I thought when we first started, I was like, okay, this is going to be easy. We just get to talk off the cuff. But it's a little, because we're so used to having the structure of what you're about to say. But
yeah.
And you,
I mean, I've never been the one who has been interviewed.
Yeah, you're
it's
on the
fun.
opposite
That's the
side.
one that's so weird. And every time people are like, well, what questions are you going to ask me? I'm the worst because I never come with prepared questions.
I just think of it on. Yeah, I had
Ever.
these here, and we didn't even get to them
Yeah.
because we just. I like how like it just kind of
The flow.
flows. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say that's one thing that I get a lot of compliments on when it comes to my interviewing style is people they're like, oh my gosh, I was so nervous going into this. I didn't know what I was going to say, but you made it so comfortable. And I was like, yeah, that's why I didn't send you questions.
Yeah,
because
then you focus too much on
I
it.
want, if I have one specific topic that I know I'm going to go into, then sure, I'll research, I'll look into it, and I'll make sure I stick to that one topic. But when it comes to those feature stories I'm doing, I'm talking about you. You know you better than anybody else. So therefore, I'm not going to come in with questions. I know what you do. I know why I'm here. But most of the time, I'm going to just let them go.
And you just have a genuine conversation because if you're asking the things that you want to know as a person, that's what the public wants to know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. And I think we were both kind of that way too.
Especially with politics.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, the worst. I will never forget. I went into it was my first time working at my station, and this was like the end of summer, so we were getting around to primary, and it was the first time I ever heard of a provisional ballot. I was like, what is that? Like, where do I go to get that? Like, I thought we already voted and everything. And so I went into the voting office and I said, hey, I'm really, really bad when it comes to this stuff. So please, I was like, talk to me as if I am in elementary school. And he did. And he was like, no, that's totally okay that you don't know this stuff, because the general public, a lot of people don't know how government works.
Right.
And how, you go to vote and you have these things, you fill it out, you do the mail-in ballot, whatever. That's it. But a lot of people don't know, okay, as we're like going in and actually counting these ballots, there's some people whose mail takes a little bit longer to get to us. There might have been a mail delay. So those are what's taking a little while. Why some ballots are counted right away and why some aren't,
Yeah.
And I think that was for sure one of the positives that I loved about, being in this industry is, if I don't know the answer, I know where to go to find somebody who knows the answer. And not only am I going to be teaching my viewers, I'm also teaching myself. I'm learning, what is this law? What is this, process? How does a bill become a bill? I can watch Schoolhouse Rock all the time. But actually talking to a lawmaker is like great, because at the same time, they're experts in their own field. And they get excited when somebody talks to them about it, instead of saying like, hey, here's the facts, blah, 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 answer this. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll answer that question. But if I'm telling you like, hey, I'm really bad at this, can you like help me out? They love it. They love being able to teach you about your own industry, just like we like teaching about our own industry and working in news. So it's always fun. I think that's one thing that I love about it is I'm always learning. I'm always learning.
That's
when
awesome.
when I'm at work.
Cool.
Yeah. What other questions did you have?
I think that's it. I mean, I'm just want to make sure everything was recording for this. It's starting to, when it goes on for a bit. So I just want to thank you for coming down, and everyone make sure you give out a shout out to McKenzi holding the title of our first guest. So
oh my gosh, that's so nerve-wracking.
I know.
I didn't think you were actually going to take me serious.
I know. McKenzi kept being like, when are you going to have me on? I'm like,
we ran into each other in a Five Below.
Oh yeah.
When you like scared the crap out of me. I almost
totally snuck up.
Hey,
Did the little
and I only saw her for like a half.
Who is that?
I
caught the Bodyguard McKenzi version.
Well, he was like, hey ma'am, what are you doing? And I was like, oh no.
That sounds like me.
I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and I had only I saw
Almost
you walk by,
got beat with a dog toy.
and I was like, I think that's McKenzi, but it was like for a brief
I was
second.
like, oh,
so
totally.
and he took off. I'm like, oh god, I really hope that's McKenzi because it's about to be
Oh, I
really
knew
bad.
it was. I got the LASIK vision.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that is so funny. So and then just standing in the middle of a Five Below, and everybody's like, "Can you move?"
Yeah, we chatted for
That's-
too long.
Sorry, excuse me. I was like, "So when are you gonna take me?" I didn't think you were actually.
No,
gonna take
I
me.
want to. I want to
So,
start having guests.
If anybody else is like, "Why haven't I been asked?" It's just you just got to meet them in a Five Below.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You're
That's
right.
where the scheduling happens.
That's my second business
Yeah,
office.
shout out Five Below.
Right, that's where I get all my stuff.
Yes. Well,
Sponsor us,
it'll be
please.
exciting.
Yeah.
I think you guys did great.
Thank you, and you did great for being on here. And
That's all I do.
please, everyone, if you have any more questions, put them in the comments for McKenzi, and we'll have her back
Yeah.
on.
Oh my gosh.
You'll be
Yeah.
you'll
Part
be the,
two.
the third host here.
Special roommate. Yeah. I'm like the Airbnb roommate.
Yeah, right? Yeah, the couch floater.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching.